y'all. This is Marley K. Hope y'all are well. This story came out on yesterday, the 11th of January, 2024, and it is about the housing market and home insurance. And I have been following this story for quite some time, having lived in Florida, having moved away from Florida, and watching home mortgages increase astronomically to the point where people can barely afford to do anything except for pay the mortgage because of the natural disasters and things that are occurring at such a frequent um, rate that insurance companies are either increasing the rates of homeowners insurance or bailing out of states altogether, leaving homeowners with few options, and the options that are available are so expensive that people really cannot afford their property. So it says the housing market is being hit by home insurance shocks. These maps show the most vulnerable areas. This analysis projects what counties are at the highest risk of an insurance correction due to fire, wind, and flood. So it says during the pandemic housing boom, a close friend purchased his first rental property in Fort Lauderdale. Interesting, because that's where I just came from. A few days ago, he reached out and said his home insurance and property taxes had just increased by $500 per month. This will effectively halve the property's cash flow. He was shocked. And he isn't alone. We're amidst something of a home insurance shock, and particularly sharp in markets in states like California, Florida, and Louisiana. Several insurers have already pulled out of those states altogether. On Tuesday, we learned that California's largest home insurer, State Farm, will raise home insurance rates. Among those, it didn't drop outright in the state by an average of 20%. This change will take effect on March the 15th. To better understand which housing markets might be at the greatest risk of home insurance shocks heading forward, Reese Club reached out to Jeremy Porter, the head of climate implications research at First Street Foundation, for the latest home insurance risk analysis. So, remember, I've been telling y'all about this doggone 2024 doomsday map. Now, don't never forget that the children of the corn is children of the fallen angels, of the Nephilim, the sons of great renown, or whatever they call them. Them peoples, them peoples know stuff. They know what's coming. They know these poles are shifting. They know the earth is quaking. They know the water levels are about to rise. They let out a warning a couple of years ago, and folks just kind of act like it was a huge joke. And so here we are in 2024, and things are happening. And these insurance companies are not wanting to pay up. So people have invested in insurance companies for all this time, and now they're not going to be able to be compensated. They're going to be stuck with these properties. They're going to have to sell their properties. And part of this also is how these big equity firms, these big companies like BlackRock are going to go buy and buy up all these properties, and then uh, redevelop them after the dust settles, or they're gonna do something else. But I definitely don't think that this is just by accident. I think these people know huge losses are coming. I think they are pulling out so they don't have to pay, and the few that are sticking around, they're not gonna pay up either. They're gonna be belly up, and folks just gonna be in over their heads. They're not gonna be able to ever get out of debt. Um, and I don't even, well, I was gonna say, I guess it wouldn't even matter, but it is gonna matter because these people will still have some type of credit or track record with They will have owned these properties, and they're just going to be upside down in them. But it is very interesting that this particular year, like last year and the year before, the insurance company started pulling out and raising rates to the point where people cannot afford to pay the mortgage. And I had a friend, and I told her, I was like, you need to move. And it's the same friend that called me crazy when I was during the pandemic. And I was talking about all this stuff that's coming. I'm crazy. I'm exaggerating. I don't know where you're getting all this stuff from. And so, I was just like, you should move in Fort Lauderdale. Um, but some people just get fixated on paradise, living there, good schools, la 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 la. Like there's none of that anyplace else. Forget that the whole thing about to go underwater and you ain't gonna probably survive it if anything happens, because it's gonna happen suddenly. So in any event, I did my due diligence, and I wish everybody the best. If you are in Florida, I'm going to encourage you to leave. Please leave. You're not going to be able to afford nothing there. Get out while you can. Um, get out before the economy tanks and everything fails and you can't leave. You're stuck. So it says to better understand which housing markets might be at greater risk. Oh, I'm sorry, I already read that. First Street Foundation has an analysis that projects which counties are at the highest risk of an insurance correction due to the risk of due to fire risk, wind risk, and flood risk. In other words, the share of local properties right now at risk having home insurance raised or non-renewed for fire, wind, and flood. So let's take a look at the analysis. So it's the East Coast over down to Texas. Look here. Look here. Look. All of Florida, the whole darn county. All Palm Beach, 100% Broward. But the whole state. The whole state. Georgia, South Carolina, all the way up here, up yonders. Texas. The Keys. Among the 3,075 U.S. counties analyzed by First Street Foundation, 368 counties had at least 50% of local housing properties identified as at risk for insurance correction due to wind risk. Of those, 94 counties have 100% of their local counties at risk. Almost all of those counties are along the coastal region stretching from Massachusetts to Texas. Percentage of housing properties identified as at risk for insurance correction due to fire. Nearly all of those are on the west coast or in the Midwest and west coast of America, with a few places in Texas and in the South. Of those same 3,075 U.S. counties analyzed by First Street Foundation, 46 counties had at least 50% of local housing properties identified as at risk for insurance correction due to fire risk. Almost all of those counties are in the west or southwest. The most at risk county is Andrews County, Texas. And the percentage of housing properties identified at risk for insurance due to flood. Wait a minute, what was this first one? Oh, the first one was wind. Okay, so wind, I'm sorry. Wind was basically the East Coast, the coast of the Atlantic, transatlantic slave trade. So it says the percentage of housing properties identified as at risk for insurance correction due to flood risk. 100%. Not a whole lot here. Um, So it says when it comes to flooding, none of the 30,075 U.S. counties analyzed by First Street Foundation had at least 50% of local housing properties identified as at risk for insurance correction due to flood risk. The most at risk is Letcher County, Kentucky, 49.6% of local properties at risk. One thing to keep in mind with this analysis, in particular for flood risk, is that it's done at a county level. At the zip code and neighborhood levels, of course, risk can vary significantly within a county. For instance, where I live in the suburbs of Cincinnati, my home has low flood risk, while homes just a few miles up from mine and closer to the river have far greater risk. Keep in mind that homes with low levels of insurance correction risk, the risk of having insurance raised or non-renewed for fire, wind, or flood, can still see their home insurance rates jacked up. In fact, one reason homeowners insurance premiums are raising so rapidly is because construction costs and home prices have surged significantly since 2022, making repairs increasingly expensive. So, to me, this is just a bellwether. You ain't gonna be able to afford your a mortgage soon. Everybody gonna be renting. Rent gonna be high. Everything gonna be high. We ain't gonna be able to live. You might as well buy you a little piece of land and get you a tent and be content. Things are just gonna be real problematic, y'all. So I mean, we really gonna have to rethink how we live. Everybody's gonna have to rethink everything because you're just not gonna be able to afford to live in this country. It's just not going to be cost effective. So, again, if you live in these areas that are at risk for home insurance non renewals or really drastic homeowner insurance increases, you may want to consider relocating now. Don't wait until later. Um, I know a lot of people think about the traditional ways. Well, my house is worth this. If I try to go buy someplace else, I ain't gonna be able to. Look, you're gonna have to try to get someplace and sit down. Life is gonna be different for everybody. You can stay and be different, and you can't afford to live there, or you can move and start over, move someplace cheaper, move someplace safer, move someplace where you're less likely to suffer something from uh, whatever they got planned for us. Um, just gonna have to really just think. This is the end of an empire. It's the end. It's over. Whatever it was before 2020 is done. And so we all going to have to make concessions, downsize, do things that we did not want to do in order to make life bearable. Let's put it like that. So with that said, um, take all these things into consideration when you're planning your life for the next 3 or 4 years because things gonna get hard. It's better to leave now on your own versus to be pushed out because of a weather disaster or because the rates are going up so quickly that you can't afford it and you end up losing your property anyway, and you end up having to sell at a loss, and nobody wants that. So don't be so attached to Babylon. Don't be so attached to anything in this society, in this nation, because it's going away. Whether you want to believe it or not, everything is going away. So, with that said, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification and hit all so that you'll be notified each and every time I upload new content. Follow me on Odyssey, Rumble, Instagram, and on Facebook. The links are in the description. And if you'd like to support this channel financially, I have a Venmo and a coffee link in the description so that you can contribute if you like this type of content. keep prepping, y'all. Keep praying. Keep strategizing in your mind. Seek the uh, wisdom of the Creator, the Most High, so that He can tell you which paths to take to avoid any stress and strife in your life and any major disruptions in your family's life. Again, life is going to change for everybody. Things are about to go down this year. And if you don't believe me, just keep on living. This is not going to be a pretty time for us. And a lot of people are going to suffer because they're attached to these things. They expect they're going to continue to be able to live the same lifestyle. And we all going to be barely holding on by the hair on our chinny chin chin. But we will endure if we are not attached to the things of this world. Come out of this system, come out of this world, and get closer to the Creator, because living like this is not natural, it's not normal. We're not supposed to live like this. We're not supposed to be under this type of duress. We're not supposed to be under this type of debt. And the earth is correcting itself. It's going to do it whether we want to or not. This system is not sustainable. And what you're seeing is the Ponzi scheme basically falling apart. So deal with it now or deal with it later. But you're gonna have to deal with it. All right, this is Marla K, and I'm out.